Well, so we are continuing tonight on Nun Alpha on base 51b at the Gemara, about 8-9 lines up from the bottom. Tan Rabban on Dvarim Shebein Beishamai Beisila Besuda. So the Mishnah spoke about a number of distinctions in the halachic rulings between Beishamai and Beisila when it comes to halachos of a meal. So the Gemara says, Beishamai Omrim Mavarech Al Yom Ba'acham Mavarech Al Yain. So the first item that the Mishnah mentioned was, according to Beishamai, when you make Kiddush, first you make the bracha on the day. So for example, let's use Shabbos as the example. So if you look at Shabbos, let's say our Kiddush. So we have first Vayichulu, talk about Friday night, then the bracha Bari Pri Hagafen, and then the bracha Mekadesh HaShabbos. According to Beis Shammai, really you should first make Mekadesh HaShabbos and then Hagafen. Why? Shahayom Gorin Liyayin Shiyabo, because first of all, it's the day, it's Shabbos that is causing you to drink wine. Ukvar Kiddush Hayom Va'adan Yayin Loba. Furthermore, it's already Shabbos. So Beis Shammai is really advancing two ideas. Number one, it is the day, it is Shabbos, that is what brings, so to speak, the wine. It's the obligation for Kiddush that creates the obligation for wine. And number two, by the time you're making Kiddush ready, it's already Shabbos. So you put both of those two things together, and therefore, and therefore, again, Beis Shammai says it makes more sense to make the bracha first on the Mekadesh HaShabbos, and then the bracha of Hagafen. Beis Hillel say no. Beis Hillel says no. You should first make the bracha of Hagafen, and then afterwards you should make the bracha of Mekadesh HaShabbos. By the way, the same applies to Yom Tov. I'm just using Shabbos as the example. Why? So what was Beis Hillel's logic? Shayayin gorim lekidusha shete amar. Because first of all, again, it is the wine that causes Kiddush to be said. In other words, Kiddush is said over wine. So it's the wine that causes the Kiddush to be recited. Shnei amar. Another thing is furthermore, again, you have two brachas, the bracha of Kiddush Mekadesh Shabbos, the bracha of Hagafen. So in general, whenever you have two things that you're not sure which one to do first, we look at the one that occurs with greater frequency. We call that the concept of Tadir V'Sheino Tadir Kodmi. If something is common or frequent and something is infrequent, the frequent item always takes precedence. Therefore, Hagafen is made more often than Mekadesh Shabbos, and therefore the bracha of Hagafen should go first. So the Gemara says, Good. The halacha follows Beis Hillel. So we'll get to that in just a second. The Gemara says, "My davar acher." What does it mean when the Gemara says davar acher? Another thing, and then the Gemara introduces tadir b'sheino, tadir kod, and mechitema hasam tarti v'hachachado. So maybe looking at the arguments of Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, you would say, listen, Beis Shammai brings two arguments to support his position, and Beis Hillel only brought one. To which the Gemara says, "Hachanami tartininu berchasayan tadira uberchasayam eina tadira tadir v'shino tadir kodim." So ultimately, again, the Gemara says Beis Hillel is also bringing two pieces of logic to support his position. So both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel are both bringing two proofs to their position. But yet the Gemara says v'halacha k'divrei Beis Hillel. The halacha follows Beis Hillel. Now we'll say this is actually important because this is halacha l'maisis. So we know, in other words, a little anticlimactic for us. We know the halacha follows Beis Hillel because we know what we do every Friday night by Kiddush. We say Vayichulu, the introductory psukim, then we say Hagafen, the bracha on Yayin, and then only afterwards the Berachos Hayom, Mekadesh HaShabbos. So we paskin like Beis Hillel. The Gemara says Pshita. It's obviously paskin like Beis Hillel. Why? Daha nafka baskol. So remember again, the Gemara Maseches Eruvin, Rashi quotes the Gemara Maseches Eruvin that says that a baskol, a heavenly voice, came out and said that the halacha always follows Beis Hillel. So of course the halacha follows Beis Hillel. What is the chiddush? So it's possible maybe this discussion took place before the baskol, the heavenly voice came out. Or perhaps no, it even happened after the baskol, top of Nun Beis 52a. Rabbi Yeshua, and our Gemara reflects the view of Rabbi Yeshua, because what does Rabbi Yeshua say? The Amar ein mashgichen bebaskol. Rabbi Yeshua says we do not pay attention to heavenly voices when it comes to deciding matters of halacha. So this, in general, is an incredible idea. It's actually interesting. This concept is found in this week's parasha that Moshe Rabbeinu says to Klal Yisrael, "V'atu Yisrael, ma Hashem Elokecha shoel mi'imach ki in yira." Moshe Rabbeinu asks Hashem, Klal Yisrael, what does Hashem ask of you? Except to revere Him, to serve Him, to fear Him. So the Gemara learns from this, Hakol b'yedei Yeshayim chutz mi'yashayim. Everything in the hands of heaven, except for Yiras Shamayim, which literally means fear of heaven. What it means on a more global level is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu predetermines everything. The one thing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not predetermine, ultimately, again, is your ruchnius, is your spirituality. That is up to you to decide. That is up to you to decide. So interestingly enough, the Gemara suggests over here, that's why according to Rabbi Yeshua, for example, we don't listen to a bas kol when it comes to halacha. Because again, halacha is decided again over here in this world by Klal Yisrael. It is not by a bas kol. So even if there was a bas kol that came out and said halacha always follows Beis Hillel, we do not listen to that. So the Gemara is about to say, second line from the top, Nun Beis Modal 52a. I have decided Beis Hillel the Berachos Adifa. To Beis Hillel really hold that the bracha of the day Mekadesh HaShabbos should take precedence over Hagafen. That Tanya we learned Hanichnas LeBeis Hillel Matzei Shabbos Mavarich Alyan V'Ala Ma'ar V'Ala B'Samim V'Achakach Omer Havdalah. So remember again, we learned in the Brisa that if a person walks into his house on Matzei Shabbos, he should make the bracha of Hagafen, then Borei Ma'orei Ha'esh, then Borei Minei B'Samim, and then the bracha of Hamavdil Ben Kodesh Shechol. V'Im Eino Ela Kos Echad. What happens if, however, halacha l'maisa, a person is eating shalosh udis? They're about to bench, so now I have to bench, and I also have to say Havdalah, but I only have one cup. What should you do? You go ahead and you leave the cup until after benching, and then you go ahead and you make all of and you make all of the brachos that we just mentioned. Ultimately, again after benching. So the Gemara says, so mishashim kul la'acharav. So the Gemara says, so what do you see from here? Now, ultimately, again, so you see from here that halacha l'maisa, the bracha of Hagafen is preceding ultimately the bracha of Havdalah. But according to Beis Shammai, we would say that generally the bracha of the Yom, which would in this case would be Havdalah, should come before the wine. Maybe this is not Beis Shammai. Maybe it's a different opinion of Beis Hillel. So the Gemara says, Lo sa'adaytcha diktani ma'ar v'achakach b'samim. Now, because if you look at the order of the Brisa said first you say Borei Ma'orei Ha'esh, and then you say Borei Minei B'Samim. Oman Shamus Leidi Islei Hai Svara. Who is the one who holds that this is the proper order? Beis Shammai. Tisanya Amar Yehuda Lo Nechal Beis Shammai Beis Hillel Ala Mazon Shebetchila V'Al Dola Shebasof. Beis Shammai Beis Hillel don't disagree in the fact that in this case where you're using the 1 cup of wine, benching will be first and the bracha of Havdalah is last. Alman Nechlaku. So what do they argue about? Al HaBesamim. Ala Ma'ar V'Ala B'Samim. The order of Borei Ma'orei Ha'esh and Borei Minei B'Samim. Beis Shammai say Ma'ar V'Achakach B'Samim. First you say the bracha, and again we're going to discuss why all of this is, but first you say Borei Ma'orei Ha'esh and then you say Borei Minei B'Samim. Beis Hillel Omrim B'Samim V'Achakach Mar. Beis Hillel on the other hand say first you say B'Samim and then you say Borei Ma'orei Ha'esh. Ayomi Mai. The Beis Shammai he bali with Rabbi Yehuda. How do you know it's Beis Shammai contra Rabbi Yehuda? Dilma Beis Hillel he bali with Rabbi Meir. Maybe it's Beis Hillel ultimately again in accordance with the position of Rabbi Meir. To which the Gemara says, Lo sa'adaytcha diktani hacha b'masnisin. Beis Shammai omrim ner umazon b'samim v'havdalah. Beis Shammai hold that the proper order is Borei Ma'orei Ha'esh. Benching, this is talking about where you're combining benching and Havdalah together, right? Ner mazon b'samim v'havdalah. Beis Hillel on the other hand say ner u'b'samim mazon v'havdalah. I have a hasam bebraisa katani im ein lo ela kos echad manichola achara mazon mishalshon kol acharav. And we learned over there that it says that if you only have 1 cup of wine, you have to use it both for benching and for Havdalah. What do? You put all of the other brachas after benching, right? Shmamina de Beis Shammai v'ali b'Rabbi Yehuda umikol makom kashya. But still, again, we have a question because again now it seems to be contradictory because what it seems to be happening over here is that by Kiddush we're saying that Beis Shammai holds you first make the bracha of the day Mekadesh HaShabbos and then the wine. But yet by Havdalah it sounds like you make the bracha of Hagafen and then the bracha of Havdalah. So what's going on over here? To which the Gemara says, no, it's not a contradiction. Chasar Beis Shammai, Shaini Yule Yoma Me'afuke Yoma. This is very interesting. Beis Shammai will say that there's a difference between how you deal with the entering of the day, i.e. the beginning of Shabbos, versus the exiting of the day, i.e. Havdalah. What does this mean? Iyule Yoma, when the day is coming, Shabbos is beginning. Kama d'mekadmin alei adif. The sooner you can bring in Shabbos, the better. Afuki Yoma, when the day is leaving, i.e. Matzi Shabbos. Kama d'macharin alei adif. Ultimately, the more you could delay it, the better. Ki hechi d'lo lehave alon kemasli, so that it should not appear chas v'shalom that Shabbos is that Shabbos is a burden. Now, what does this mean? So this is actually quite fascinating. So according to Beis Shammai, we're suggesting is as follows. Beis Shammai's general position is that when Kiddush, right? Kiddush Talocha is first you make the bracha of Mekadesh HaShabbos and then Hagafen. Beis Shammai advanced two reasons. Number one, it is Shabbos that is causing the wine, right? It's Shabbos that's causing me to drink the cup of wine. And number two, by the time I'm making Kiddush, it is already Shabbos. So using that same logic, the Gemara assumed that Allah L'maisa by Havdalah, Beis Shammai would hold that first there's the bracha of Baruch HaMavdil Ben Kol Shachol, and then Hagafen. Yet we see that that's not the case. Even Beis Shammai agrees that it's Hagafen and then Baruch HaMavdil Ben Kol Shachol. So why the distinction? To which the Gemara says it's a fundamental distinction in the following: when Shabbos starts, we want to start Shabbos as quickly as soon as possible. So therefore, make the bracha of Kiddush Mekadesh HaShabbos before Hagafen. When Shabbos is ending, we want to delay the official departure of Shabbos as long as possible. And therefore, halacha l'maisa, we want to go ahead and first say the bracha of Hagafen, and then only afterwards the bracha of Baruch HaMavdil Ben Kol V'Shlachol, which is the official bracha of Havdalah. It's really beautiful. So the Gemara says, one second, the Savri Beis Hillel, all right, so let's go to Savri Beis Hillel. Let's finish up. Savri Beis Hillel, Berachos Mazon Tuna Kos. Does Beis Shammai hold that benching requires a kos? V'hotman we learned Ba'lehem Yain La'achar Amazon. If this is back to the Mishnah, if let's say again they finished eating, and then they brought out to the group, right? They brought out a cup of wine. In other words, I finished eating, and then a servant brings out a cup of wine. So the Gemara says, "V'im ein sham ela osa kos," and if that's the only cup of wine, Beis Shammai says, "Mevarich al yain v'achar mevarich al hamazon." You make the bracha of Hagafen, and then you bench. My love, the mevarich aleish v'shasile. Does that not mean you make Hagafen, you drink it, and then you bench? Lo, the mevarich iluye umanachle. No, what it means is you make the bracha, right? You make the bracha and you leave it, right? You make the bracha and you leave it. In other words, you make the bracha over the wine, right? You make the bracha over the wine, and then you leave the wine for benching. So the Gemara says, one second. But one second. The problem is if you make a bracha over the cup of wine, then what? Then you have to taste the cup of wine. So what's going on over here? To which the Gemara says the timeline. No. According to Beis Shammai is, if you want to have a glass of wine after you finished eating, so you make the bracha on the wine, take a sip, and then bench over that cup of wine. But you can't do that. Tamo pagmo. But again, if halach l'maisa, you taste from a cup of wine, you sip from a cup of wine, so then that cup is rendered what we call pagum. Pagum means literally again like stunted or handicapped in some way. In other words, that it can no longer be used now for a kos shel bracha. To which the Gemara says, no, the time may be adeh. No, the case is where you spilled a little bit of wine on your hand, so you're tasting it, but you're not drinking from the cup. Rather, you're just tasting what spilled onto your hand. So you're tasting the wine, but like this, the cup is not pagum. But one second, but a cup used for Berachos and also for benching needs a shear. And b'pashtos, if you're spilling some of the wine on your hand, then you don't have the requisite shear. No, the case is where you have more than the shear in the cup of wine. Ella osa kos katani. But the Mishnah said you only have one cup of wine. To which the Gemara says, Trei lo havi umechad nafish. No, the case is where the cup of wine that I have, it has more than the requisite shear for one cup, but it doesn't have enough of a shear of shiurim for 2 cups. So therefore, I can make the bracha, spill a little bit of wine onto my hand, taste that, and then use the rest of the kos for Berachos Hamazon. But yet we learned Rabbi Chia said the Beis Shammai holds. If you want to have a glass of wine after the meal before benching, you make a bracha on the wine, you drink it, and then you go ahead and you recite Berachos Hamazon, you bench. So what did the Gemara say? Rather, what do you supposed to say? So again, so according to that approach, Beis Shammai does not require a cup of wine for benching. To which the Gemara says, "Ela trei tanai bali with the Beis Shammai." Rather, what you have to say is there are 2 different tanoim according to Beis Shammai. So apparently, again, there is a fundamental machlokas in the position of Beis Shammai. Does Beis Shammai require you to have a cup for Berachos Hamazon? That is a machlok. So I will say shkoyach. We'll stop over for today. I know we went a little bit quickly, but the Metzger will get to some great halacha l'maisa next week. A good Shabbos to everyone.